Okay, I actually have no idea how to do this. I wanted to show you my pie crust, but I have no idea how to get this video to work. So let me just see, this is the problem here. Oh, there, that's hopeful. I'm only using an iPhone right now, so there's nothing fancy happening. All right, I wanted to tell you about this pie crust. This is a gluten-free, dairy-free pie crust, and I use lard. Can I get in this with this shot too? Maybe, maybe, maybe not. Yeah, see, I told you I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. Hi. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna take the very cold lard and I'm gonna mix it. You can do this with a pastry cutter if you have one, but I just use my fork. It's never failed me. And I just press the lard down into the crust, the flour. And I do this until there's these little tiny baby chunks of flour and lard mixed together. You could certainly use dairy-free butter if you're going for dairy-free. Should I name this video? I have no idea what I'm doing. All right, so I am just gonna do this for a while. This is the gluten-free 1-to-1 flour. It's lard, and again, you could use dairy-free butter. You could also use butter. If you can eat dairy, go for it. But I think lard, whether you eat dairy or not, is the best possible thing to use in a pie. I make my own lard, but if you don't have access to be able to, get the leaf lard, the fat, to render it down yourself, you could buy it. You can actually buy lard online now. Beautiful pastured lard online. There's so many places that are selling it. Your local farms, ask them for lard. I just go and whenever, there is a stock up in the freezers at my local farm, I just get as much of the leaf lard as I can, and then I render it down myself. But a lot of places, I know, a lot of places in Rhode Island, just sell the lard already rendered. So I want to show you my pie crust, and I attempted to get myself in the video and have both my hands free, and you could watch me do this, but I have no idea how people do that because I could not find an angle that worked at all. So I'm going back to like old school Instagram story style, and I am just pushing my lard into the flour with my fork. So this is 2.5 cups of gluten-free 1-to-1 flour. It is 2 tablespoons of sugar and 1 teaspoon of salt. And then after you mix that all together, you're gonna put in 12 tablespoons of very cold lard. If you don't have lard, you can certainly use dairy-free butter. If it's salted, don't add salt. If you can eat butter, if you can't eat gluten, you can certainly use butter. Use unsalted if you can. Preferably pasture-raised butter or butter from pasture-raised cows. So with gluten-free 1-to-1, you want to scoop the flour into the measuring cup and then level it off. You don't want to take your measuring cup and put it into the flour. I don't know why, but that's how you do it if you want an accurate measurement. So 2.5 cups gluten-free 1-to-1 flour. You can use King Arthur, you can use Bob's Red Mill, and then your sugar and your salt, and then your lard. All right, this is 2 eggs, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, and a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. You could also use lemon juice if you don't have vinegar. Probably can't hear me talking while I'm doing that. 2 eggs, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, plus a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, or you can use lemon juice. This is going in here. Usually I would slowly add it, but I am doing this one-handed. So I'm gonna add a little more than I normally would. If you've never made your own pie crust, especially if you're gluten-free, it is so worth trying it. This is not hard. I know people make pie crust seem like it's a hard thing to make. It's not. You just gotta keep things cold. You want your butter, your lard to be cold. I know some people even freeze butter and then grate it, like with a cheese grater. And if you're gonna add some cold water, which I may need to do to this, the last one I made was a little dry. You want it to just be very cold. You can even put an ice cube in it. My water gets really cold out of the faucet. So we're just gonna do this. I'll probably need to use my hand because I don't really know how to, I can't do this one-handed. Have I mentioned I don't know what I'm doing? All right. So I gotta look at how people make food videos and have themselves in that video at the same time. Like, what's the camera angle? How are they doing it? Because I really don't know. All right, this is probably gonna be fine without water. So I am gonna put this down for a minute and use both hands, and I'll be back. Okay, so there it is. I just kind of did this, right? I was just taking two hands and just very gently working it until it came together. You don't want to go further than that. And then I'm gonna divide it in two, and there are my pie crusts. This will get wrapped and put in the fridge for about an hour before I use it, or frozen. I am gonna use both of these because I'm making strawberry rhubarb pie. So these are both gonna get used. The top will be more decorative. I'm not gonna put a full top on. It will be decorative. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, but I can show you what Chloe did on the last pie that we made. If she's here, she's in charge of the tops because she's brilliant. Brilliant artist. All right, and that's it. You see how simple it was? It really wasn't that hard. You need the right ingredients. So if you're gluten-free 1-to-1 flour, that's important. I think the lard is worth getting. Maybe I'll make a video on how to make lard at some point next time I make it, because I am out now. I do have one I ordered from Thrive Market. I have a lard that came from Thrive Market. I have used that before in my pie, and that was really good. They tend to be sold out of that often, but that's worth checking for. That comes right in the mail. Thrive Market is pretty cool. Okay, so these are going in the fridge. I'll see you soon. If you are freezing this, you're gonna wrap it in plastic and then stick it in a Ziploc baggie, and then just make sure you label it use it within like 3 or 6 months. I don't know how long. I'd probably use it longer, but when you make this, try to make a double batch. If you can make a double batch, you will always have a pie crust in the freezer ready to go. The kids love hand pies. I'll probably do a thing on that at some point. We use like anything, jams, jellies, any sort of, you know, fruity thing, or you can make them savory. And it's basically just rolling out the dough, cutting them into squares, and then filling them up, which is really delicious. That's actually how I came up with this recipe, was trying to make some hand pies that were gluten-free and dairy-free. And this just works beautifully. Okay. So the only way that I know how to make a gluten-free crust go into a pie plate is to use parchment paper. I'm gonna dust the parchment paper, and then I'm going to just roll this out. It does not roll like gluten. And if you care about this at all, you probably already know that gluten-free flour does not act like gluten flour. So when this came out of the refrigerator, it had been there all night because I started this yesterday. I just had to work it. I just kind of put it in my hands for just a minute to warm it up just a touch. Otherwise, it's just gonna crumble all over the place. So it's not the same as rolling out, you know, pastry with gluten. you're kind of pressing and just trying like to keep it together. You're just trying to keep this thing from falling apart. So I don't care what it looks like on the edges because I'm gonna change that. I just want it big enough that I can put my pie plate right over it like this. And then what I do is I use my hand like this and I just get it into the pie plate. That's the only way I know to do it. I'm sure there's other ways. That's what works for me. And then I just kind of pull off these edges. And sometimes you do need to go back and use that dough to fix like this section right here. Doesn't really have anything. So you're just, like I said, I'm sure there's people know fancy ways of doing this. I do not. My gluten-free dough crust falls apart, so I have to kind of work it back. So I'm just adding these little chunks in, and then I'm going through and I'm making somewhat of a cute edge. And you know, I remember making pie crust with gluten, and it is a very different experience. So you can't really think of it as the same thing. You gotta like treat it as its own. And I am no pastry chef. I just love to eat pie. I actually love to make pie more than I love to eat pie, but I love to eat pie. I find making pie so simple, so seasonal, and I love, like, it's so easy to make a pie and then bring it to someone's house. You can make a savory pie, you can make a sweet pie. I don't know, my mom made pies. I just love pies. All right, so I've kind of pieced it together. It doesn't look beautiful like some gorgeous glutinous dough, but like I said, you're just kind of trying to get it to make a somewhat good looking. All right, so okay, so then I made up a filling and I froze it. This, because I wasn't sure when I was going to get to make this. This is strawberry and rhubarb and honey, and I believe I did coconut sugar. I usually do, if I'm using a liquid sweetener, I usually try to add a little coconut sugar or brown sugar also, so it doesn't get too liquidy. And then I use arrowroot. I know a lot of people use cornstarch, and I did some lemon juice in here as well. I'll write all that down. And you want to try to keep the juice out. I actually saved the juice and just use it for something else. So I'm just going to kind of spoon it out so I don't get too much of the juice. This is so delicious just like this right now after it's been soaking in this honey and sugar and lemon. All right, so then I've got my filling. Just like any other pie, just the crust is a little more difficult, you know? Beautiful pie. And I'm going to roll out this second crust, and I'm not going to use the parchment paper this time because I'm gonna do some sort of cute, if Chloe was here, she'd make it super cute, but I'm gonna make something cute. I'll use a pizza cutter on top. So let me figure out what I'm gonna do. All right, as I mentioned, if Chloe was here, this would be more fancy. I just made a really simple lattice over the top. And that's it. You just, you know, you have to be understanding that this crust is not going to operate in the same way. And then I almost always, if I don't use the full top, well, even if I do use the full top, I usually have some left over if I'm not using a deep crust, deep dish pie pan. So then these little bits just go into the freezer. So I have a bag of a bunch of these, and eventually I'd probably have enough just to make more pies, but this is great for hand pies. You can just make a bunch of hand pies. And that's really simple. You just roll out the dough, use my pizza cutter. I cut it into rectangles, put the filling in, put the top on, so 2 rectangles, and then use a fork to just make the edges all cute and sealed. Brush it with a little egg wash, maybe a little sugar. If you're doing something savory, some paprika or something like that to make it look pretty. And that's that. Gluten-free strawberry rhubarb. All right, I do have one last trick to show you. So instead of doing an egg wash, what I've been doing, just to keep things really simple, is I have this avocado spray, oil spray, and I've actually just been spraying the top with this, and it just does beautifully. And then sometimes I'll sprinkle a little sugar on top, or you can sprinkle cinnamon, something like that, and that gives it a beautiful brown, and it hasn't been burning. It's been great. This is gonna go, this particular pie is gonna go in the oven 400 degrees for 20 minutes, and then down to about, I don't know, 350 will work. If your oven's super hot, you probably could do 325. And then you want to cover it at that point so it isn't browning, just to be safe. And then you do that for about 35 minutes. So you just check it. Every oven is different. And then serve it with some vanilla coconut milk ice cream. I want to share what I just made. This is the syrup from the strawberry rhubarb mixture, and then sparkling water, and it is delicious. While that pie cooks, I just want to say, like, I think people wait. I know people wait all the time to be perfect, to have figured something out, and then never get there. Like, never get to that point where they feel ready enough to share, to talk about something. I don't know how to put a camera to show me making a pie in the kitchen. I don't know. I'm not a pastry chef, but what I do know is that I'm willing to just do it. I'm willing to let it not be perfect. I'm willing to go into something and figure it out as I go. So, would our pies win any, like, contest? Probably not, but they sure are a beautiful thing for us to do here when Chloe's involved and, doing something artistic on the top. We make up fillings, we make up hand pies, we do all sorts of stuff. To be able to have access when you can't eat gluten and you can't eat dairy to food that looks like what other people are making, it looks like what other people are eating, it's really freeing. And so I don't need to be an expert. It doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just here to share. And I wanted to say that because I've worked with so many women over the years who don't do because they're comparing themselves to somebody else. They want it to be perfect. They're worried about being judged. And they just don't. They just don't. And for me, the joy of life, like the joy right now, is just the act of doing and deciding to share, because I feel like I was kind of born into this space of teaching, of guiding, and then hopefully bringing that into someone else's. world, like encouraging someone else to try to make a pie crust for the first time, or to buy rhubarb, having never even known what a rhubarb was, or to go pick their own strawberries and go somewhere to a field where they're not being sprayed with chemicals, where the strawberries aren't scary to eat. There, you can bring your kids to the strawberry fields and bare feet, and you're safe. So that's my hope. So there's, you know, something that you've been thinking about and you aren't doing. You know, for me, this YouTube channel, I don't know what I'm doing. I've been making videos just sitting like this in front of a camera for 12, 10, 10-ish, 11, 12 years, I don't know, over a decade. And now I'm trying to do something more. And I'm not gonna be perfect right away, but I'm not gonna let that stop me. I'm gonna keep going. All right, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Well, this pie came with me to New Hampshire, and I got too dark to film last night, so you get to see an eaten pie. It was delicious. Look at this little face. I want some pie. Strawberry rhubarb, gluten-free, dairy-free.